Okay, it appears we are indeed up, running and live. Good evening from Dubai. Phil Pendlebury here, and I hope you're having a super mega large day. And those of you that are celebrating, of course, a happy holiday season. You can see I've got some slightly festive lighting going on. Nothing much else. I tried putting on a pair of antlers, but the camera didn't pick them up. If you're joining us from the Middle East, assalamu alaikum, marhaba. Good to have you with us too. So here we are, it's a live stream on Nuendo, and what we're doing today is we're just going to have a look at some of the new and improved features that are also included in Cubase. But of course, as you know, with Nuendo, there's lots of other features involved as well. So the first couple of things we're going to do is related to video. So I've got a little project here that you might have seen before, and we're going to have a look at that. So let's move into it. Headphones on, or if you haven't got headphones, speakers are fine. But for me, it's definitely a case of getting the headphones on, which is another reason, of course, why I couldn't keep the antlers on. All right, let's move into it. So I've got my sound design project that I did a little while ago. And this one is the airport scenes. So let's just have a quick look through that. Hopefully you can see the video, and I will try and zoom in when I can so that you can see it maybe more clearly. Although, to be honest, looking at the video is not super important at this point. But let's just have a quick listen through it, just once.
Svennevig Airways Flight 123 is boarding now at gate number 2. All passengers, please like this live stream and then proceed to the departure gate.
Okay, so there we have it. We had 3 scenes, and we did a little bit of sound design, and I showed some of the features related to that. So we got quite a few questions about this, and it is actually something that is now possible in Nuendo. We had it previously quite a long time ago, but it's now possible to do this again within Nuendo. There is some technical stuff that we're going to skip through today, but basically what I want to do is show you how to kind of export that, replacing the audio that is in the video itself. So let's get the camera off and we'll get into it. So yeah, what I've got to point out here is that this video has inherently no sound, okay? So it's a completely, I just pulled in, some clips, removed all the original audio from them, and then we did the sound design in Nuendo. So the video itself, as it exists, does not have any sound. So we've now got a couple of ways that we can get that video exported without using any external programs, and including the video of the sound design. So it's called Replace Audio in Video. And what we're going to do, we're going to basically leave it as it is for this first one. And I'm going to go up to the menu and File, Export, Video. So you'll now see this dialog box. So let's zoom in on that. So what we can do now, we've got 2 options. We've got Replace Audio in Video or Render New Video File. So with Replace Audio in Video, what you basically can do is embed your stereo sound mix in one or more selected video files without re-rendering them. So what Steinberg say is this is not only safer, but also quicker, because your project contains one or more video events and you have arranged and mixed the audio to a stereo output bus, which we have. And the original video file gets copied to the specified location. An audio mixdown of the selected stereo output bus is embedded into the files. And the resulting video files are MP4. Embedded audio is compressed using AACLC with 192 kbps at a constant bit rate. So let's just see how that works. It's actually pretty straightforward. We have to make sure that we've got the video selected, which you can see it's coming up here. If I deselect that, there's nothing. But if we select it, you can see that the resulting video file is there. All right. And the channel that we're going to use will be the main outs, because that's the main outs. We're not going to do a real-time export because I don't actually have any external gear involved. If you had external gear, you could maybe consider doing a real-time export. And that's basically all we need to do. We've selected a location, which will be my desktop, and we'll give it the name Smegville 1. So all we're going to do now is hit replace audio. We've got the locator set, and there we have it. So what we can do now is bring up the file browser, which I have here. There it is on my desktop. And
Smegville Airways Flight 123 is boarding now at gate number 2. All passengers, please like this live stream and then proceed to the departure gate.
let's go back and have a look at the alternative method. All right, so what we're going to do once again is we're going to go up to the menu, File, and Export, Export Video. And this time we're going to have a look at Render New Video File. Now, as you can see, it's a very similar kind of dialogue. So what this one does is actually exports a completely new video file. So it's not using the original, sound-free version that we had earlier on. This time, it's going to make a brand new file. So it's newly rendered video rather than a copy of the original. And what Steinberg says is this may take longer because obviously it's actually rendering a brand new video. It may take longer and it may be a different file size to the original as well. So let's now just quickly go through the settings here. We've got the file name and path. I've called this Smegville 2. The video format, and we can add the time code. Why not? We'll do that just so that we can see the difference. The channel selection, once again, exactly the same as it was before. We're not doing a real-time export. And at the moment, there's no option to change the video format. So we've got MP4 at H.264. So that's pretty straightforward. And all we're going to do is export video. And as you can see, there's a little bit of time involved with this one. But if we now go back and we can look at Smegville 2.
Smegville Airways Flight 123 is boarding now at gate number 2. All passengers, please like this live stream and then proceed to the departure gate.
So there you go. That's the two ways of getting your video out. So including the sound. Now, one of the issues with this is that it is replacing the audio within the entire video that you've done. And also, with the other method, it's basically using the same video that we've got on the screen here. Let's zoom back out. I do apologize. We've been zoomed in there, haven't we? So what happens, for example, if let's just take this center area here. We'll play it. Or let's use that as an example because it's nice and short. What happens if we try to do the replace video on that with the locators set? So let's just see what happens. So once again, up to the menu, File, Export Video. Let's go to Render New File, and we'll call this Smegville Edit 2. Leave everything else as it was and export the video. Okay, now we can have a look at that. So that pretty much concludes this section, which was, like I said, this is all about, just to reiterate, in case for some reason, you know, I wasn't clear. What we have is the empty of sound video that was brought in. We did all the sound design to that video, and then we're able now to export that, including the sound. So you've got two ways of doing it, and that's great. So there's really no longer any need to bring it into, you know, another editor to put the sound and the video together, which is marvelous. All right, so let's move on to the next part, which is still quite relevant. What I'd like to do now is have a look at some things that are also, like I said earlier, part of Cubase. And the first one is something that actually I know a lot of people aren't familiar with. And this is track versions. And track versions, we now have the ability to use track versions in video. So if you've used track versions before, you'll know what we're doing here, but this may help some people who haven't used track versions before. And not only that, like I said, the new feature now is the ability to have track versions in video. So let's go back to the screen. So track versions, what are they? Well, again, according to Steinberg, track versions allow you to create and manage multiple versions of events and parts on the same track. We can now do this with video tracks in both Cubase and Nuendo 13. So it's basically what it says on the tin. It enables you to have two versions of the track that you can switch between. So I've already set one up on the video track here. I'm just going to open the far channel here, just so, because it's difficult to try and get this so that you can see it all, to be honest. Because I know I'm going to have to try and, yeah, we'll try and zoom in. So let's just put the locators back around the entire video for a moment. And you can see here, I've got the video track selected. And you can see here, I've got the track versions section open. All right. And you can switch through the different versions of the track. So you can see as soon as I did that, we'll zoom in there. As soon as I did that, you can see that I've got two versions of that same track. There's version 1 and there's version 2. Yeah. And the other way we can do that as well is to select the video and look at the track itself, and we can select it that way. Right. So that's the basics. Now then, what happens if we want to do some track versions with some of this other stuff? So let's take, for example, let's go back to my new track version here of this video. So we've got like the short, you know, the short version. And I'll put the locators around that. So let's have a look at the VO. And let's have a quick listen.
Smegville Airways Flight 123 is boarding now at gate number 2.
Okay, so let's say we want to, I've got that cut a specific length, and we're going to finish this audio where she says gate number 2. So what I'm going to do, duplicate the active track version. So there we go. I'm going to rename that to version 2. You can see there's IDs here, which we'll get to in a minute. So version 1, version 2, and they're both exactly the same. So I'm going to go to version 2, and what I'm going to do is edit that down. Whoops, not the video, the actual track itself. I'll just move the video a little bit. So I'm going to edit that down, turn the snap off, until it kind of fits nicely with that video. So if we solo that now, have a listen.
Smedville Airways Flight 123 is boarding now at gate number 2.
All right. So we've got 3 other tracks that also are included in that particular scene of the video. So if I move the video up here, we should be able to see this now a little bit more clearly. So let's do the same. So I'm going to go to the next track here, which is the elevator noise. Let's have a quick listen. And I'm going to duplicate that, give it the name of version 2. You can name it whatever you like. We're going to select version 2, and let's just get rid. I'm doing this slightly differently because the video is covering up some of the tracks, so just for the sake of speed. And we'll do the same thing for the ambience, the office. Again, name it version 2. And we'll snip, get rid of the end, move it across. And finally, hospital MRI noise. One of the wonders of sound design is the fact that you quite often use sounds that are nothing to do with what you were actually trying to do in the first place. But, you know, there's the MRI noise of it. Yeah, it was just a bit of electric. So what we've got now is we've got the original full length. I'm going to have to move it so I can show you. We've got the original full length versions, and then we've got the full length version of the video as well. Now, that's all fine. And you might have been wondering, why did I take the time to edit all those files while you're all watching? Because the next thing, again, if you've used track versions before, you might be already familiar with this, but the next thing for me is the game changer, and it's really useful. So let's move into it. And this is all to do with the IDs that I mentioned earlier on. You can see that we've got version 1 here is an ID of 9, and version 2 is ID 17. And what we're able to do now, you can see these IDs on the track version number 2, they're all incremented. So if I select them all, you'll get this in a second, don't worry. So I've now selected all the track versions. So what we're going to do now is assign all the same ID numbers to those track version number 2. So how do we do that? So we need to select the tracks like so, and including the video. Sorry, let's do that again. There we go. So we've got the 4 tracks selected and the video track. And now what we do is we go to the menu, project, track versions, assign common version ID. Menu, project, track versions, assign common version ID. So now if we look, we can see track version number 2 here is 24. This is 24. This is also 24. This is also 24. And on the video, it's also 24. So now what we do is we go back to track version number 1. And you can see that these are all slightly different as well. And we're going to do the same thing. We'll do it from the menu. Menu, project, track versions, assign common version ID. So let's see now, have we got the correct ones? Yes, we have. Okay, so the numbers are a bit random, but there you go. So the track version number 1 is ID 25, and the track version number 2 is ID 24. So now what we can do, we can use the drop-down menu at the right of the track, which I showed you earlier on. Let's just expand that over a little bit. And if we go to ID 24, only that video changes. However, if we go to select track with the same version ID, and then you can see that they all change, which is really, really useful. So I'm sorry that took, a little bit of a round the way, and it's quite a tricky procedure to grasp straight off. But basically the important thing is, and you can have as many of these as you want, of course. It doesn't have to be just 2, there can be 10. The important part here is that you need to make sure that each track ID that you want to stay as a group has the same ID, or each track version has the same ID. So if we do that again now, we can drop down the list, select tracks with the same ID. Whoops, let's do that one more time. I've got a key command for this, but I wanted to kind of show you. And there you go. We can now select between those 2 versions. Camera off, and you can still see that. Yeah, and what we could do now, of course, is re-render that as I showed you earlier on. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, let's move on. So what I'd like to show you now is vocal chain. Now, again, this is another one of those things that's included in Cubase, and a vocal chain calls itself vocal chain. But not only can it be used for vocals, so it can also be used for dialogue. So what I want to do here is go through the features of vocal chain. So we've got my little voice here from previously.
Hello, can I help you?
You've heard this a million times.
Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voice.
So we're going to skip through this quickly because really the whole point here is just to show you that we can get some use out of this for dialogue, not only for vocals. So I'm going to select that as an insert, and we'll go vocal chain. And there it is. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see that a little bit more clearly. Make sure it's in the center. And so what we have here is a whole bunch of effects that are aimed at vocal and dialogue. And before we do carry on, yes, we've got filter, gate, pitch, de-esser, etc., etc., etc. We're going to just quickly go through and build a little chain up. You can move these around as well. So, for example, we've got compressor and EQ, so we can move the EQ before the compressor. We have the character section. We can also do the same thing. You can move all of these around, which was much requested and delivered. So let's just have a quick look. We've got the cut filter, so let's play a bit.
Can I help you? No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio One. Looks like someone's reading.
And what I'll do is I'll just move through these, and you can see as we build it up, So we've got the gate.
Reading the news. Here in Studio 2, we're recording an advert for a new movie which is coming out next year.
As you can see, as I adjust the threshold here, if I put it all the way up, you won't get any sound at all. As I adjust the threshold down.
No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio One.
All right. So that's a gate, which gets rid of any, background noise, spurious background noise. Pitch we're not going to use because it's not a vocal, so this is not really going to do anything.
Looks like someone's reading the news.
Although you could,
Here in Studio 2, we're recording an advert.
if you want to get creative, but there's no real need for that. De-esser, well, standard de-esser with a lot of nice little features, and we can listen to the difference as well. So let's have a quick go through this one.
For a new movie which is coming out next year.
Let's have a listen.
No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording.
Yeah, I don't know how clear that is, but there are a few little S's. We can change the frequency as well, like so.
Help you? No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio 1. Looks like
We
someone's
have a
reading.
dynamic filter.
Here in Studio 2, we're recording an advert for a new movie which is coming out next year. Hello, can I help you? No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look
See
and
if we
see
can-
what's going on in Studio 1. Looks like someone's reading the news.
Then we have
Here
EQ1.
in Studio 2, we're recording an advert for a new movie which is coming out next year. Hello, can I help you?
And there's different types of EQ we can choose as well, which is useful. And then, of course, we have a compressor at the end.
No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio 1.
So just
Looks like
taking a bit of the edge off. Now then, while we're at it, you might have noticed that this is a stereo file, and because I took this from a particular sound design project, it's panned slightly to one side, and that's getting a little bit annoying. So rather than messing around with pan, what I'm actually going to do is go to one of the other features that's new, and this has been requested, as you guys I'm sure know, for a long, long time. Now we can finally do it. See the channel configuration button? Let's zoom out. Over here, and we can click that, and we can change that to a mono channel configuration. Because this is a VST3 plugin, don't need to worry about that. It's just instantly going to work. So let's go back to the zoom, get the camera off, and continue.
Hello, can I help you?
There.
No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going
So moving down, we have an exciter.
on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio 1. Looks like someone's reading the news. Here in Studio 2, we're recording an advert for a new movie which is coming out next year.
So that adds a little bit of tonal kind of character. Saturator. And with the saturator, we've got different types of saturation: tape, tube, and distortion.
Here. Hello, can I help you? No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio 1. Looks like someone's reading the news. Here in Studio 2, we're recording
A second compressor.
an advert for a new movie which is coming out next year. Hello, can I help you?
Again, choice of type of compressor. We can use the new black valve, the box comp transparent, which is usually the preference for dialogue.
Help you?
Dynamic filter number 2.
No problem.
Right.
Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio 1. Looks like someone's reading.
And of course, so on and so forth. I think really we don't need to go through all of these, but it is a very useful plugin. It's an all-in-one kind of treatment for vocals or dialogue. And of course, when you're coming to vocal,
reading the news.
we have reverb.
Here in Studio 2,
And
we're
delay.
recording an advert for a new movie which is coming out next year. Hello, can I help you? No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here.
So don't forget, we've got different compressor types. And with some of the others, like the EQ, you've got different types of EQ as well. I think I have saved something here. I'm not sure whether this would be, this is one of my kind of dialogue settings.
Can I help you?
Yeah.
No problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the things going on here. We're recording
it's
lots
just
of voices today.
Very subtle on dialogue, but it does allow you to kind of tailor things. One of the things that's really useful is the dynamic filter. For instance, like as I am with the lav mic at the moment, which is pinned to my shirt. Again, you sound design or post guys probably know about all this, but if I speak like this or if I speak like this, you get kind of a different presence, of different EQ because of the proximity to the mic. And you can kind of sort that out with a dynamic filter. Keep the bottom end where it should be if I move away from that part of the microphone, etc. Difficult thing to try and explain in super fast live stream mode. All right, so there you go. That's the vocal chain. I said a whole bunch of really useful stuff, and some of them you can switch around, choose your type. It's really good for vocals and also very useful for dialogue. Okay, so let's move on. So we've got one more kind of section that I want to go through, and this is MIDI related stuff actually. So I've made a little thing. I'm going to put this all together. We can keep that. Let's just get rid of it actually. And let's skip over, if I go over here to my MIDI stuff, and we can zoom, yeah, we can pull that up there so you can see it. And this is basically just a little bit of MIDI that I've programmed up because I want to show you a few things in the MIDI editor. So let's have a quick listen. And no prizes if you can guess what influenced that little bit of Purdy shuffle. But doesn't matter. Don't really even need to listen to it that carefully. What we're going to do is have a look at how the MIDI editors work, because there are some really nice new features. So the first thing I want to look at is range editing. Now then, let's open up that piano. We'll get rid of the modulation lane so it's a little bit clearer, and I want to make sure that this is visible in my little zoom area, which it should be. Hopefully, yeah, I think you can see that filling the entire screen right now. So here's something that we couldn't do before, and you can now do this in Cubase and Nuendo. So let's take this bunch of notes here. We now have the ability to do range editing. So if I go over here and select the range tool within the MIDI editor, remember, this is not audio, and we can select a range, and if I press delete, we can now just simply delete that. And there's lots of other things we can do with the range tool. There's lots of, you can also assign key commands to move the range itself. Like you can see, I just stepped that down with a key command to move the range around. If I hit the arrows, you can see that the whole range is moving as it is at the moment. But basically, the main thing is, have a look at this. You can use the range tool now within MIDI editors, which is super handy. And let's just select like the last little bit of those two and the beginning of that one, and we can hit delete. And we couldn't do that before. So that's a range tool. Have an experiment with that. There's quite a lot you can do with it, and a lot more than I've got time to go into now. One of the real wonderful new things is now the ability to handle multiple parts in the MIDI editor. So at the moment, we're just looking at the drums. at the keyboard part. I do apologise. Even though you're still hearing everything else. And you can see over here on the left, we've actually got a list of the other tracks which are available on the project window. So if I select those, you can see we've got them all visible here at the top. And we can kind of, zoom in and out on those as well if we want to. It does make the whole thing a little bit small, but that's because I've got it kind of zoomed in to show you. If I show you the full size of the screen, and I could actually do that, and now you can see this is how I would normally be working. It's a 4K screen, so I'd normally have, if I was doing detailed MIDI, I'd have the screen blown up like that. So camera back off. Maybe we can leave it like this. I don't see why not. So options are over here. We can switch those individual tracks on and off. As you can see, we've now got everything visible. And if I were to click, let's get rid of the range tool. If I were to click on the bass here, then the bass track now becomes active. You can see that it's bold, the font. We can look at the track display settings, and we can display only the active track or all visible tracks. And we can enlarge it as well. So this is only relevant to what you're seeing at the top here. So I like to keep that as all visible. The next little feature here is the track visibility. We don't have any configurations for that, and that's how you would set that up here. There's no need to go into that now. And then, of course, we can search. So you tie this together with another feature, which is over here. And hopefully, again, you can see, I'll try to zoom in, and the part editing mode, which enables you to choose which parts you're actually going to edit. So at the moment, I've got it set on all parts because I'm usually quite careful about what I do. So if we, for instance, selected that lot, we can delete it all, even if that was by accident. So that deleted the bass, and it deleted the piano there, and it deleted some of the drums. But if we select here active part, we should find that we can't work on other things. So as you can see there, if I select the piano as the active part, I can select all that lot, and only the piano, which is the active part, is being worked on, being edited. So, and then all parts on the active track. So this is all events in all parts on the active track can be selected. So I like to leave that there. Now, of course, the beauty of this is when you've got little things that happen. So let's say we've got that little piano bit there. Let's have a listen. So I just want to put a snare that goes along with, there's my snare. Right. So I want to have a snare hit that hits at the same time as that piano. Now, obviously, if you're a musician, yeah, no problem. You'll know roughly where to put it anyway, but look at the line there and see how I can line this up, because I can still see what's going on. There we are. And have a listen. Yeah. So that's really, I mean, we could spend a lot more time on the MIDI editing stuff. And because this live stream's really kind of more aimed in the Nuendo area, and because it's mainly post that we're doing on this particular kind of series, probably better not to go into too much detail. But it's almost like, I mean, you can see, it's almost like having a separate project within your project to be able to work on, and really makes things, super, super clear. And once again, don't forget, you don't have to display everything. So if I select that, only drums, we're still hearing everything. Yeah, we're still hearing everything, but we can switch, so we don't have to keep messing around, going back to the project window and selecting that, doing this and doing that. We can do it all now within the MIDI editor itself. So let's move on to the final little thing that I wanted to show you. And this again is a much requested feature, which is related to tap tempo. So there's the tempo track. So what we've got now is some multiple options with the tap tempo. And I like to do this from the transport bar, which you can see here. And there's the tap tempo. I've got it set to a rather extreme key command, because at the time it was the only one I had available. Control-Alt-Shift-E, but what I can actually do is hold down Control-Alt-Shift and use the E to do my tap tempo. So there's a few options, and the new one is display only, which is the one that we were crying out for. So if I do the tap thing here, if I hold down my Control-Alt-Shift and hit the E, you can see it's lighting up as I hit E. You can see the tempo is changing on the transport bar itself, and when I stop, we now have the message down here. The tap tempo was 68.75. And the other options, we can also insert this tempo into the track. So let's just use one of these as an example. Insert tempo event at cursor position. So I'm going to put the cursor there. And we know that we're roughly 60, I think, at the moment. So let's just speed it up a little bit. And so I'm going to try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see I got 90 BPM and the tempo was inserted into the correct place. So you can see there's a whole load of new options available. Automatic kind of tries to figure out what you want to do. Insert tempo event at selection start. If you were to select select that lot, then it would, or let's say we selected that one, then the start of the selection is there, so the tempo would go there. Last playback start. So if we started from here, where we are now, it would insert the tempo where we just started from. And of course, the one that we just did, the cursor position, we can set the entire project tempo, or we can display only. And I must remember to put it back to that because that's the one I use mostly. Okay, back to the camera. That was some tricky stuff to try and explain on the screen without going into super, super fine detail. And of course, because we're live, you know how it is. Things kind of go a little bit off the beaten track. But that'll do for now. I think we've got, most of the information that I wanted to get across. The video stuff and the track versions. Please feel free. If you didn't fully understand what I said, we can make a little pre-recorded video, which I can then edit and show it in much finer detail. By all means, let me know in the comments and so on and so forth. And I think that just about concludes it for today. Next month's live stream, we have something a little bit exciting, a little bit new. I can't tell you what it is right now, but we'll get there. Hope you're having a great holiday season and, enjoy the rest of 2023. It's nearly over. We've only got a couple, 2 or 3 more days of it left. So enjoy yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Super mega large.